last part 4 of developing a resume series, and this is the mechanics of a resume. So one of the things to consider when you are finalizing your resume and looking at it as a whole is the font. You want to use an accessible universal font that is readable on any platform or device that it could be pulled up on. So this could include a tablet, an iPhone, an Android, a desktop, whatever it may be, even a laptop. Make sure that the font is a basic one and a universal one that is legible on any type of device and also application that it could be pulled up on. So don't be fancy. Arial or Times New Roman works just fine. It's good to have good spacing in between your lines. So instead of double spacing it, you might want to, or having it no spacing in between. 1.5 line spacing is really helpful when we consider accessibility and universal design. And what universal design means is that it is accessible to nearly everyone and everything that it is pulled up on. So whenever we develop things as technical writers, like a resume, universal design is going to be the thing that you need to keep at the forefront of your mind when developing any type of documentation. 12-point font is really best practice. So try to keep it consistent throughout in your body of your resume. However, your headers and even the header where your name is at the very top of your resume, that font size may be a little bit differently. So use font sizes consistently throughout. So if your header is, if one of your headers, let's say your education, your qualifications and skills, your references, if those are all 8-point size font, make sure that they are consistent throughout. Make sure all of those headers are the same size. Your name can be a little bit bigger than the rest of the document, but everything else needs to be consistent throughout. It really shows a clean resume when you're able to make everything consistent. The next thing is bulleted lists on your resume. So in order to keep your resume clean, bulleted lists are a really good thing to use to make sure that it looks efficient and it's legible. So avoid using numbers or any other fancy bullets that you find in your when you're crafting your resume. Just keep the bullets like you see here. These ones right here that I'm using for this PowerPoint, that may be best for you to use when you're doing your resume. Also, keep the lists consistent throughout. Again, a resume has to be consistent. The layout and the style needs to all look the same for everything. So let's take, for example, your job experience section. Well, under your job experience, when you start listing out your jobs and then you start telling them the descriptions of the tasks that you do, maybe under one job you decide to list out 3 tasks and explain what those 3 tasks were and what you did. Try to keep it consistent throughout for the next job that you list, or at least close to it. We can have between maybe 2 to 3 bulleted lists as well for the rest of your jobs, but let's not have 3 bulleted lists for one job and then one bullet for the next job. It just doesn't look good, so try to keep it consistent throughout. Photos. Don't include your photo. Usually you don't want to have your photo anywhere near your resume. It can be distracting, and it's also just not something that you usually find. However, if an employer does ask for your photo, I would probably not give it to them. It's probably not a job you want to work for. I would ask why they want your photo, but honestly, you should not be giving your photo out to anyone, not even an employer, just because what are they going to be judging you on? How you look? that is really sketchy. And it's probably not a job you would want to work for if they're going to be judging you on your gender, your race, what you look like. So let's not send in photos. Demographics, your gender, sexual orientation, race, religion, or any other demographic information is not necessary to place on your resume. You don't need to have these things on your resume. These things are important, of course, and they are a part of your identity, but they are not, there's no space for them on a resume. If your employer does ask you these questions for these things during your application, again, this is probably not a place you would want to work for. That should be non-discriminatory practices in every workplace. It is illegal for people to not hire you based on any of these things. So just keep in mind not to give out information you do not feel comfortable giving out, especially if it is personal information and identity. So I did put an asterisk next to this. The only thing worth listing really, and it's not really a demographic, but it could be if you are bilingual or multilingual. The one thing that may be worth listing is any special language or multilingual skills you have, especially if the job requires it or it's something that they would see as a plus or are looking for. Your mechanics and grammar and punctuation. Remember to please proofread your entire work. You want a clean document and that is legible and professional. You don't want your employer or reader tripping up or being held up at an awkward sentence or word choice or punctuation errors or weird formatting. That is not good. That's going to draw attention away from your actual professional identity. So don't let these mechanical mistakes draw away from that. You worked really hard on your resume. Don't have any distractions. Some employers may also read mechanical mistakes as carelessness. They may view you as someone who is careless, who doesn't look over things, who is not considerate of the types of documentation and documents that they put out for the world to see. So please keep in mind that these things are important, and it's really up to the reader what they value the most and what even a small mistake can say a lot about you. The last thing is submissions. So if you are sending a physical copy of your resume to someone, remember to print your resume and cover letter on a heavyweight paper. So nice paper that can be found really at a local printing shop or even Office Max or I think it's called Office Depot, right? These types of papers can be found anywhere that sells paper. I think you could even find it at Walmart probably. Although there's not really a Walmart around here from my understanding. Maybe you're at home and you can go to Walmart. A place that has Walmart. Make sure it is in a nice manila envelope, your resume and cover letters, and all your other application materials with your name on the outside of it. That reads maybe your name. The X would be considered your name, so mine would be Genesis Barco Medina, position application. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I have it backwards. It would be whatever job position you are looking for. So if it's mechanical engineer position application for Genesis Barco Medina, or it could also say confidential for whoever the employer is or the person that you are applying for. That could be the manager, the supervisor, the office manager, whoever. And then you want to put this manila envelope inside a not so easy to bend envelope that you can find at the post office and send it off. This is going to ensure that your documents are received with no creases, so it looks nice, and you're not blamed for carelessness again, because that could be read very easily. If you are submitting online, make your document a PDF. So this is mostly, most of us will be submitting things online when we start applying for jobs. Even for our community partners that we're working with, you will submit it through Canvas. Submit a PDF of your resume and cover letter you don't want anyone to be making changes to it once it leaves your hands, once it leaves your computer. If you put it as a Word document, people may change it. People may accidentally backspace on something when they pull it up on their computer. So please, 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 always, always, always send any official documents as a PDF. It is really best practice and it is for your benefit. This is the end of our series of developing a resume. I hope it was helpful. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me.